All right, ladies and gentlemen, karibuni tena to this edition of the One Mic Show, na ni furaha kujiunga nanyi wapenzi wasikilizaji. We're streaming live on Facebook from Kilimanjaro studios outside Washington, D.C. We are also live on YouTube, so please remember to share our live streams. Now, later tonight in the social segment, we will have a conversation about fathers who raise children that are not their biological offspring. What would you do if you found out as a grown-up that the father who raised you is indeed not your biological father?
That's smoke, bro.
Stay tuned for that and more. Na bila kusahau, tapokea mziki toka DJ wetu machachari mleta habari DJ OmoshFaya, na tutadunda kule viwanjani na Mika Ochjiz namba 7 mgongoni akituletea habari za michezo. So moja kwa moja toka Kilimanjaro Studios, ni mimi mtangazaji na mwanahabari wako mpendwa Ali Badawy. Wengi wananiita mteule na kule kwetu mniite mjukuu wa Masai, because I'm Kenyan by blood, American by design, Masai by choice. Sichagui, sikagui, na sibagui. Karibuni tena. All right, now this hour in news and politics, we interview Kisii County Senate aspirant Jeffrey Chui Gichana. Now, Jeff will be talking about his vision for Kisii County and campaigning as a diasporan in Kenya. He will also talk about advancing the Diaspora Agenda should he get elected, so stay tuned for that and more. I'm your politics anchor, Ali Badawy. It's Friday the 18th of March, 2022, and we're coming to you live from Kilimanjaro studios outside Washington, D.C. Now, please remember to subscribe to our One Mic Show YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram at One Mic Show. On panel with me tonight is Mr. One Mic Amakawa. We have our resident DJ OmoshFaya. Ruth and Mika are off tonight. Our super producer is none other than Mubelo Bandio. And without much further ado, we are going to get started right away today because we have a lot to cover. Now, just to get us started on this tonight, I want us to do a bit of reflection because this year saw a segment of Kenyans in the U.S. register to vote for the upcoming August presidential elections. Now, diaspora's involvement in Kenyan politics dates far back prior to Kenya's independence. Now, at this point in history, students on airlift scholarships had started returning home and actively engaging in the push for independence in Kenya. Now, we also remember the agitation for a multi-party system in the late 80s from Kenyans living in North America and Europe. Now, the activism with support from international civic organizations led to a new dawn of multi-party politics in Kenya. More recently, in the 2000s, Kenyan diaspora organizations were at the forefront of ensuring that Kenyans living abroad earned the right to hold dual citizenship. Now, this dream came to fruition under the new constitution, but barred dual citizens from holding any state or elected office. Now, despite this setback, the 2010 constitution has since attracted Kenyans living in the US to vie for elected office back home. And on the show tonight, we are privileged to be hosting Jeffrey Chui Gichana from the state of Minnesota. Now, Jeffrey is an aspiring candidate for the Kisii County Senatorial seat in the upcoming August elections. Now, some of you might already know him as the former president of the Kenyan diaspora group, Monyagetinge, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Jeff will tell us shortly. Now, Jeff is also the managing director of Intercontinental Consulting Group. Bwana Chui, karibu sana to the One Mic Show. How is everything going in the purple state of Minnesota, like One Mic would say? Jeff, karibu sana.
Thank you very much for having me, all the guys on the One Mic Show. Right now, Minnesota is a little cold. I was in Kenya, so basically I am transitioning into getting used to the cold. But the good thing is, I think the next few days it's going to be getting warm in the 50s and 60s. So that's a good thing as well. So thank you again for having me.
All right, great. Asante sana. Now to get us started, you're the former president of one of the big diaspora organizations in the U.S., and that's Monyagetinge. Please tell us about this organization, what it does, and what your role was as its president. Jeff.
Thank you very much. So yes, I was the former president of Monyagetinge, which is one of the largest Kenyan groups in the diaspora, but mainly based in Minnesota. I was there for the last 10 years, and the current president, Madam Hulda, who I should say she's also running for Senate here in Minnesota, was part of my team during my first term as well. Manyagitinge by large is basically a community group that basically brings Kenyans together in Minnesota and the US, if you will. Number one, come together and just share our common cultural background. Number two, also, it's an organization that kind of like helps Kenyans who come to the US. Basically, we help them kind of like onboard them onto the US culture, and basically help them kind of like start up themselves as they get used to the US. And then also it also helps people the diaspora. Basically, when we have issues, for example, let's say when we have like a tragedy in the community, Manyagitinge, is the lead group that comes in and tries to help the family and the community on how best to manage that problem. And then also things like services like immigration help, and also connecting people to different resources in terms of that can help them here in their life here in the US, basically like housing and whatnot. But also over time, I think as our numbers have grown in the US, Manyagitinge became also one of the lead groups among the Kenyan groups that we have that championed for a way of how do we also better start connecting ourselves back from where we come from, and how do we influence the process of things that happen back home. Also, in that sense as well, Manyagitinge also became a group actually that also is trying to say that now that we're in the US, our numbers have increased and whatnot. How can we leverage our staying here? Basically, that means like parents taking part in school committees, people who never go back home, trying to be part of the process in terms of like running for office here, for mayor, for city council seats, and also all the way to to being a state rep or even a Congress person. So over time, it has evolved, and I think as it evolved, I also evolved as well. Basically, through my connections, through working with people, that sense also led me to now say that I think there's more we can do as a Kenyan diaspora, okay. Not just here in the US, but also back home. So that's my journey, if you will, in terms of how I'm getting to actually running in office in Kenya as well.
Okay, that's really amazing. And one thing I was curious about, the diaspora group Manyagitinge, is it a group that was open to any Kenyan in the US or maybe any Kenyan in Minnesota, or was it restricted to Kenyans from Kisii and Nyamira County?
Actually, our bylaws, basically, the bylaws for Manyagitinge basically says it's a Kenyan group, so anybody can join. But I think people kind of get this misunderstanding is I think Manyagitinge is a Kisii name. So basically people assume that, it's a Kisii group. And also because Minnesota also is predominantly, we have many Kenyans who are Kisiis here. So basically it tends to have more membership. But I think other community groups felt that maybe this is more of just one group of Kenyans who are coming together. But in reality, Manyagitinge was basically meant to be a Kenyan group, and it still is. Basically in Kisii, Manyagitinge means coming together. So that's the idea. But I think the name, kind of made some people perceive that it's actually only a Kisii group and whatnot. But our membership basically is mainly derived from, of course, the Kisii area. But yes, it's open to any Kenyan who is there as well.
So that means you have membership of people who are not necessarily, from Kisii and Nyamira County.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That's very important to know. That's very good to know. Now before I get the rest of the panel into the conversation, I want to know what inspired you to want to live your comfortable life in Minnesota and join Kenyan politics.
That's a very interesting question, and I think many folks have asked me, both here and in Kenya. They're asking me, Chui, you're in the US, everybody wants to come here, everybody wants to have a good life and whatnot. And for a while, I think that's well and good. But I think having been here for almost over 24 years now, I came here when I was young and I went to college here and actually I had my career here. But I think after a while, when you stay somewhere for a long time, and just let me just clarify too that remember when we first got here over 20 years ago, our technology hadn't really improved. So it wasn't really easy to connect, both sides of the world in real time and know what's going on. So, but I guess over time, as I've been here, as I've been, connected and worked, and of course, as technology has improved, it has become clear that basically the world is one. So when you talk to people back home and you see what's happening here, in reality, it just becomes that it's one whole world. So for me, what really changed me in terms of why I really say that maybe I want to go back home and maybe give back was that number one, I was sent here to go to school. The idea back then was for me to come here in school, learn, observe and learn new things, and then go back home and actually, help improve areas, So that was the initial thought, and I think when I made the decision to go back, I had to go back and say exactly why did I choose to come to the US in the first place. So that was the first thing that actually came to me is like, actually, I'm going back because my purpose here, basically for why I came here, has been fulfilled and even more. The second thing was also that I know that having worked in the community and having connected with people, observed and done a lot of things in the community, I knew that, being here, actually, I can do more, and rightfully so. But I think I said, going back home, actually, I think I can do more, but even better, So I think if you look at the lifestyle that we have here, things have changed a little bit in terms of the difference really between Kenya and here. Many people don't understand that. If you're back home, people say they want to come here, but then if you're here and then you go back home and forth, you can see that really with technology and with everything else, nothing really has changed. But that thing that really also that made me want to go back is that when you sit back and look at the bigger picture and look exactly where your life is, what you want to accomplish, Kenya and the US are not any different in terms of resources. What's lacking, and most of you might argue back and forth, is really we lack how we manage those resources back home. The accountability, the process of how things get done, and all the way to just everything be fulfilled the way it's supposed to be done. That's what we don't have back home. And I know in my early arguments, people have said that that's a non-issue. But really, for me, in terms of why I want to go back, is I think I truly, number one, have fulfilled why I came to be here. So it's time for me to go back and change and actually contribute back to where I came from. Number two, that is critical is just that I think that based on what I've learned here, the experience I've learned here, if I go back home, I can change that. I can help change that from a policy level. That's why I'm going to government, but also just by me doing the right thing that is supposed to be done, I can help change that. So I know that's a kind of a long answer, but I think it just explains, it gives you an idea of what made me, decide that now I want to go back home and basically be part of that process, as opposed to, being in the US where, of course, things are also good as well.
Okay, and it seems there's something sweet happening in Kisii because there are so many candidates from the diaspora who are actually going back home to run for office. I think Kisii County, like on my own unofficial, like statistics of Kenyans who are running for office back home, it happens to be one of those that has attracted a lot of diasporans to go run, be it senator, governor, or even members of parliament or other political offices, including MC. And we're going to talk about that later. I want to remind the listeners that you're tuned into the Politics Hour of the One Mic Show. We are talking to aspirant for Kisii County Senate seat, Mr. Jeffrey Chui Gichana. He is talking to us about what inspired him to want to join Kenyan politics. Now, his campaign is already accepting donations at Cash App handle $ Senator Chui. So for those who want to drop, a shilling or two, a dollar or two, that's Cash App handle $ Senator Chui. Now, later in the hour, he will be telling us about the priority issues on his platform that he's campaigning on. So I want you to stay tuned for that. Then please remember to share our live stream, like our Facebook page, and we are also active on both Instagram and YouTube. For those people who are not on Facebook, we're gonna post our YouTube link on the comments, and you want to share this link with those who are not on Facebook, or those who quit Facebook, and we want you to keep spreading the word. Now, before we continue, Chui, I want to go to Uno, and I want for Uno to please tell us what we are going to be talking about later tonight in the social segment, because it's going to be fire.
So, it's very simple. And this is to provide context. D.L. Hughley was being interviewed not long ago, and he said that he had hoped that he did not find out that the person who raised him was not his dad, was not his father.
Okay.
He would rather have that. He would rather have that remained a secret forever. But he found out late in his life. D.L. is almost what, in his late 50s?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he found out late. So the question is, what would you do if you found out that the person you've called dad was not your biological father?
Okay, so we want you to stay tuned. That's going to be in the social segment. Keep your thoughts, keep your comments. We'll want to hear them in the social segment tonight. Now, I also want to, bring OmoshFaya into this conversation. Omosh, karibu sana.
Asante. Inaonekana leo mumenisahau, lakini nataka watu wajue niko area, niko gangari na niko hapa karibu Bwana Chui.
Ati uko area ka bacteria?
Thank you.
Niko ndani kama SIM card.
Okay. Aya, sawa. Now let's go back to Jeff. And on this one, I'm going to be having this conversation together with OmoshFaya. We know now how party politics takes root in every Kenyan election cycle. Now, we currently have two major coalitions contesting for the presidency in August. On one side, we have Raila Odinga's Azimio la Umoja, and on the opposite end is William Ruto's Kenya Kwanza coalition. But you, as an aspiring candidate for the Kisii County Senate seat, decided against seeking any party or coalition ticket and made a choice to go it alone as an independent. Please talk to us on why you chose to go it alone and run as an independent candidate. Chui, twende kazi.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for that question. So yes, you're right. Right now in Kenya we have, it's basically a two horse race. Azimio and of course Kenya Kwanza. So just to be clear, so initially before I actually decided to go independent, actually I was in ODM, and actually I was an ODM member, and basically which of course is affiliated with Azimio as well. But after being on the ground, after talking to people, and after looking at ways to actually make a difference, I decided that maybe in my region actually Azimio or maybe ODM is widely popular in that regard. But then for me the thing that made me change was that the idea that within ODM, we in the past haven't had very credible nominations. In terms of when you have two candidates running for the same seat, and then you're supposed to go to nominations and have the people decide on who's going to run against that ticket. That process hasn't been very very credible. So I was hoping that I was going to go through that process, and I think that was the idea. But as we went along, it became clear that there's some things that weren't answered. That process wasn't being clearly explained. And then also, mark you, the laws have changed a little bit. Now IBC has changed now that I think initially, if you lose nomination, you can jump to another ticket and whatnot, but that loophole has closed. But then, as you know, also being nominated also costs resources. So I consulted widely, with my team and folks who really care about my campaign. And the result was that Chui, I think, running independent might be a good idea. It might be something, it's very challenging because as an independent, you don't have that benefit of having resources that are already established, like being an ODM party, or right now UDA and whatnot. But you're better off just knowing that, your name is going to be on the ballot, and focus that time and energy into now campaigning and making a case to the people on why you are the best candidate to be the senator. So for me, I think me being moving to independent, it was just the idea that I wasn't comfortable enough on the process of nomination within the ODM party that I was part of. So I think rather than waiting to get where it's too late, I opted to go independent so that way I can focus more now on campaigning and actually selling my points in terms of why I think I'm the best candidate to be the next Kisii County Senator.
Now, Chui, don't you think this creates a danger because you've already said that you are a member of ODM, so it is my assumption that you are in support of the Azimio coalition, or are you also independent when it comes to the presidential race?
So that one I have to be careful how I answer that, because by definition, when you're independent, you're not supposed to be aligned to any of those parties now, but you're allowed to caucus, with the area of interest that you want to be part of, whether it's Azimio or whether it's Kenya Kwanza. So as for me, just to be clear, being in ODM and being in now that ODM is in Azimio, my support for the Azimio candidate now, Raila Odinga, doesn't come just from being the party. Personally, I consider Raila a reformer. That's also who I am. So I think for me, the ideology that I have in terms of wanting to have reforms in Kenya is what leads me to actually want to support, Raila to be president. But in that respect, meaning that I can caucus with the Azimio based on their choice for a leader. But when it comes to issues and other things, I think there we have a difference. I think I don't know if I make that clear.
But isn't there a danger, of what's called splitting the ticket? Like splitting the ticket because someone is going to run on an ODM ticket, and you'll also be running. Isn't there a danger of like maybe a UDA or a Kenya Kwanza coalition candidate to Peter Katikati because of this?
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's always that risk of that happening. But I think any candidate who runs for any seat, if they put their best foot forward, I think they can go through. So to your question, yes, there's a danger of doing that, but I think that danger is also taken out based on the best option getting that ticket. To your question that if let's say we split the ticket and somebody else goes through, on that part I'll say this. I'll say now that I'm independent, I'm actually attracting even more votes from the other side that I didn't quite think I could get. So because my issue is based on because I'm also an issue-based person. So basically based on the issues that I advance, I'm able to attract people from both sides. So for right now, I think my main goal or my main objective is this, up top, of course, I'll be pushing to have Raila the president, but in between, I don't think we are electing a party. Let's elect a person based on his ability to deliver and his ability to be someone who can make a change. So I think that's the other kind of thinking that I'm trying to bring around. Being an independent is number one, very challenging, and number two, is an idea that people in Kenya are not used to. So I think me venturing into that challenging path might also help shed light, and also it might also help attract other folks who may want to be part of that process as well.
Okay, asante sana Chui. OmoshFaya, get into this conversation and tell us what you think so far.
Yeah, I think you exhausted the questions, because in fact I was just waiting for you to wrap it up. But what Chui, Paul, this Jama likes to hog the mic, but and imagine he's not the one called one mic, so I don't know. But
violence.
So swali yangu is I think I am a little bit familiar with the area. So is Suneka considered Kisii County, or is that outside of both Nyamira and Kisii?
No, Suneka is actually Kisii County. Suneka is actually in the Muturi constituency. So basically, okay. Let me just also maybe shed light onto just a few things that maybe people might not be aware of. So Kisii or Gusii, Gusii, Gusii has two counties. One is Kisii County, Kisii, and Nyamira County. Okay. So Nyamira County has 4 constituencies. Kisii County has 9 constituencies. So to your question, Suneka is actually in Kisii County and in Bonchari constituency.
Aha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. So then my other swali for you is this: because you've gone independent, and then which is I guess from my perspective, looking at it from the outside, I think is already an uphill battle. And then you're coming from the diaspora, and you've been living here, like you say, 24 years. That to me, I think, is as we have learned as diasporans, every time you go home, you know, you're a, what is it called, you're a third. What are we called? Third class citizen or something like that.
You're a foreigner, essentially.
Yeah, we are basically foreigners because it's like hauna msimamo hapa, hauna msimamo
Hauna
huko.
mizizi.
Na as long as pesa natoka mfukoni, that's as good as we want it to be. But they forget that si ndio tulikuwa on the ground tukienda shule harakati hiyo. So do you think that you're giving yourself like an extremely hard, I guess it's more of a really, really hard uphill task, especially because you're actually going for Senate, as opposed to maybe kusema, okay, let me start climbing the hill, maybe even I penya either with MCA or maybe MP. You don't think that Senate is a little bit nini, or I mean, based upon what you're seeing, do you think that this is an uphill battle? Because from my perspective, I think it's an uphill battle. Just looking on, since you're actually coming in from the diaspora and you're saying, okay, I'm putting my things in a container and I'm moving home. And, oh, by the way, elect me.
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. So basically, but let me just, I'll answer you in 2 or 3 ways. So one of them is this, the idea for me, number one, to run for Senate was solely, I mean, we went back and forth, you know, running for an MCA, running for an MP. Why I settled on being running for Senate was just because of this. The experience that I've gotten actually being the president when you think here, you know, many people don't understand that. That has been a very valuable experience. So basically, I was leading basically, you know, a group of, you know, Kenyans who mostly come from Kisii, from every area of Kisii, you know. So through that process, through that interaction, I learned quite a lot in terms of really how to work with that. And mind you, also, as part of being the president of Manyatingi and that process, we also connected with people back home. So, of course, I've been here more than 24 years, but it hasn't been that I haven't been home. I've been going home at least twice a year, you know. So basically for me, that connection, that back and forth has really made me, you know, see things a little bit differently. Now, coming to the other question about, people back home, you know, see us as I say foreigners, you know, and whatnot. And that's very true. You know, that's very true. Number one, I'll also add that they also see most of us as being elitist. As a matter of fact, I had to dress down one of the MCAs in Kisii who at a meeting was saying that, Chui, why are you living in the US, you know, as you're an American and you're coming to fight for us, you know, fight for the little resources that we have here. You know, so I simply asked him, number one, why you're standing is where I was born. I was born and raised in Kisii. You know, I did everything in Kisii. The only thing I wanted to do in America was to go to school. You know, so is that wrong? Of course not. So basically, I have done my part. My mission of going to the US is done. So if I'm coming back, why should I be a foreigner? You know. So, but again, there's folks who believe in that. You know. So, but then to get beyond that, you have to just basically tell them that, you know what, I went abroad to get a new experience, to study and come back. You know. So basically, you're telling me that somebody in Nairobi, somebody in Narok, or somebody who has lived in Nakuru who has not gone to Kisii, they're also foreigners because they don't understand exactly what goes on even in Kisii. You know, as a matter of fact, now because of technology, okay, we in the diaspora actually basically know more about what happens in Kenya than the folks who actually live in Kenya. You know, that's a fact.
That's a risky statement you're making, Chui.
Yes, it's very clear. Actually, I get more information, real-time information, up to date, even before someone actually in Kenya knows that. So folks in Kenya don't understand that, you know. But again, this attack on the diaspora candidates is also political, because if you look at it, if they can paint us as being different than what we are, you know, then it creates doubts among the voters, and then now this idea of being elitist, this idea of being like, you know, this guy is out of touch, he's detached from everything else, you know, becomes even more obvious, you know. But again, it's up to us as the diaspora candidates to help dispel that myth. and which basically, for me, sometimes tend to be very blunt. I've been very clear on that. If anybody makes a mistake of asking me why, if I'm an American and I'm running in Kenya, I quickly dismiss that very bluntly. So I think there's still that challenge, but I think it's also up to us as candidates to help dispel that kind of notion as well. And then the last thing I want to say is that the world has become very, 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 very small and just one because of technology. The reason why you're seeing many folks running in Kenya, because of running for many seats in Kenya, governor and MCS from diaspora, it's just that, they actually basically home, but they're not home. Even though they say politics is local, which is true, I think the technology has helped dispel that myth, and I think it's now up to us to change that thinking. Basically have a paradigm shift for the folks back home to think otherwise. I know that running for that seat is challenging, but again, I'm somebody who really never gets anything easy. So for me, everything I do has been an epic battle. So this is one of them that I think I'm hoping to also overcome very quickly.
Okay, good. And what what's your competition looking like? Of course, with you being from the diaspora, what's your competition looking like? Like, who else is running for this same seat? And if there's any kind of polls out there, what are the polls showing at the moment as far as Jeffrey Chui Gichana is concerned?
I will say this, and I'll be very clear. Number one, we spoke about the two. This is a two-horse race. We have parties like ODM and whatnot, who for a long time have already been established in Kisii County, and by virtue of that, they of course hold a lot of sway in terms of the thinking and the influence of how things are being taught back home. So right now, my topmost challenges right now, of course, is the current MP for Kisii South, which is Mr. Onyonka. I think you guys know him. So he's just running for Senate. He's running now under ODM. He's the one that I was going to nomination with if I had stayed in ODM. And then we have a UDA guy, a young guy. His name is Kenwa Nyambane. He's a lawyer. He's also running for Senate. And then now we have a new entrant who is the current Kisii County Deputy Governor, Mr. Mangi. He has also joined the fray, under UDA as well. So and then of course there's one more who was a former MP for Bonchari, Mr. Onyancha, who also has joined the race for Senate. So basically, there's four of them, but there's only one that I think is going to be formidable, just based that is in the party that is more popular. So in terms of the polls and whatnot, I would say right now, the leading candidate is of course perceived to be Onyonka, but that thinking is what I plan to quickly dispel. And then the other thing too, the reason why we campaign is of course to sell your points and of course to make people know you, so I think we still have time to change that dynamic as well.
I thought people give brown envelopes, so that's not what happens in
do you say brown envelopes?
Yeah, I thought that's what people do during campaigns. So that's other. I see envelopes being passed. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, that one is it's not a secret. It happens.
Yes.
And of course, as part of my campaign as well, it's something that I actually want to kill. It's going to take a while, but basically, here's what I've done in Kisii County, and I think it's very controversial, but I think it helps push the point. Number one, I'm going to do what I have to do to get, to be elected. But this idea of basically handouts is something that basically has to be killed. So basically, for me, I've said this: anyone who gives handouts and anyone who receives handouts, that action, okay, is no different than somebody being being a witch. The reason why I'm saying that is this, okay? I wanna equate that action of handouts to a vice in the community like witchcraft. I think with time people get that, but that has to be done away with because it's killing and taking away opportunities for people who actually might be better leaders. Because if you're not well, well oiled in terms of, the brown bag, basically your chances of going anywhere are very, 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 very difficult.
All right.
Wow.
You're tuned in to the Politics Hour of the One Mic Show. We're talking to aspirant for Kisii County Senate, Mr. Jeffrey Chui Gichana. He's talking to us about what he plans to achieve if elected as senator for Kisii County. Now, his campaign is already accepting donations at Cash App handle $sign Senator Chui. So if you want to drop $1 or $2 or $100 there, that's his Cash App
How do
handle.
you spell Chui?
Senator Chui. Chui like Chui. Chui. Senator Chui. Now, later in the hour, he will be telling us how we can be of support to his campaign despite not being down in Kisii County. So stay tuned to find out. Then please remember to share our live stream. We are also live. We're live on Facebook, and we're also active on both Instagram and YouTube. I think Uno is going to share the YouTube link on the comments there, so you can share the link with the people who are not tuned in on Facebook and keep spreading the word. Now, before we continue real quick, Omosh, tell us, what kind of music do we have in store later tonight in the Hit or Miss segment?
It's East African music.
East African music. That's good. And Uno, social segment. Remind listeners again, what are we going to be talking about? Because it's going to be fire.
If you found out after 45 years that the person who raised you is not your biological father, what's the next step?
Is mother in that mix, or it's just...
It's the father.
Oh.
I mean, mother, seriously, Omosh. Mother.
No, it's just the father.
Just-
The father.
it's not the father.
No, I'm
Yeah.
just asking because unajua kuna...
By the way, it could also be.
Yeah.
It could
there's-
also be mother.
I'm just saying,
But- but
there's-
you know-
It could also be mother.
But I will add a caveat who is to blame. But that's going to be in the social segment.
yeah.
That's
Yaani,
going to be in the social segment.
Umechukua mafuta sasa unaongeza kwa moto.
No, ni swali tu nauliza. Ni swali tu.
You're even
Nani ndo
blaming, you're
akulaumiwa?
blaming people who have raised somebody for 45 years.
Nani ndo akulaumiwa? Because it's an issue. But let's keep that
Let's keep it.
until the social segment.
Yes.
Don't know if I'll be around here.
Yes.
45 years, bana. Hii
All right. So now I want to go back and this is the point where I want to bring, Uno Mike into this conversation. Want to talk diaspora issues. Now, on your platform, Chui, you want to advocate for diaspora issues in the Senate, which with yourself being a long-time diasporan from Minnesota, you said you lived there for over 20 years. Now, I want you to briefly first tell us what part of the diaspora agenda you are planning to work on should you get elected in the Senate.
Thank you very much again. So yeah, you're right. So basically, having lived in diaspora for a while, I think I'm one of the best suited candidates who if I'm elected senator and happen to be in the legislature in Kenya, I'm best well suited to actually advocate for diaspora affairs. In that I've lived here, I've lived in the diaspora. I understand very well exactly the challenges that we have. But the one thing that I want to push that really I think is critical, and I think this is where the diaspora comes in. But I also want to make sure that I say this very clearly. Diaspora, of course, is very critical in terms of helping move our economy back home through the money that we send back home. That's well and good, but it's not enough. As much as we're in diaspora, we're also Kenyan. So exactly what happens in Kenya is also our business. So one of the things that I really want to push or maybe help improve, because it's already been done over the years, but it hasn't been done to a level where we feel very satisfied in that process, is the idea of diaspora voting. I know KDA and other groups pushed really hard to have language in the constitution to have that process of us voting from diaspora passed, but the implementation of that process is what has been lagging. And I think one of the things that I'm critical about is that language that was put in there that the government is going to progressively implement that process is what has been dragging us for a long time. When we say progressive, there's no end time. So basically, any administration can come in and say, we're still working with that because it's progressive. So I think one of the things that I want to push is to have a definite date that is set, that by this day, every every resource, every logistic that has to be done for the diaspora to vote has to be done. So that's the one thing that I want to push very strongly when I get into the Senate. And of course, I want to also say, the government has done, some sort of work. They have, for the first time, allowed us now in the larger diaspora in the US and the UK to actually register to vote, at least for the president. But how it was done in terms of what we just happened a few weeks ago was not something that I am happy about, because there was no consultation in terms of the folks in the diaspora, because that process could have been done much more efficiently, where it would have given a chance for more people to register. Just having people drive to the consulates at this point, is well and good, but that's not enough. So I think that process could have been done much better. So my work and my hope is that once elected as a senator, is that I need to push for that, for the change of that, to make sure that thing is addressed much more quickly, and also to have a definite deadline by when everything should be in place for us to be able to actually vote for, not just for president, but for every level of every elective seat back home, if we can, because it can be done. It's not hard. Technology has changed that. The issue they're saying is about security and whatnot. That also can be managed in a way, but the government has to work with us on that process. So I'll be pushing for that. The other thing also that I want to push is also to say that based on based on the money that we give back home and our interest that we have back home, I think it's time that we also have what I would say the 48th constituency, or the 48th county. It's time for us to have diaspora representation in the county. In the country. Basically having an elected representative from the diaspora, who's also part of the process in the government. That is what we also need to push, and also push for legislation where we have diaspora to play a part and parcel in terms of the policies that are being passed, in the various sectors in Kenya, and to have a seat for us to be part of that process as well. Not just consulting, but also by virtue of us being there, sitting on the table as well.
Okay, Uno.
Karibu sana, Mr. Jeffrey. Haven't had a chance to say hello and welcome you. As you had, Ali hogs the mic. And right next to Ali is Omosh, the hoggers. So a lot has been said, or was said. Actually, we were fortunate enough to have the EACC, the IBC,
Voter Education
Director here, and of course, we were at least we were happy. When you look at it, we looked at it from the point of the glass is half full, in that we were able to vote. We were given the opportunity to vote. In as much as to register, which means we'll vote, in as much as it was confined to Kenyan soil, or what was called Kenyan soil. Although probably they would have done, the MPs would have passed laws, to make it easier to be able to vote or expand voting. Now, many people were not excited. Of course, they went about complaining and whatnot. And of course, the presidential candidates themselves have also talked about making this the 48th county. But of course, maybe that's one question you can address, because diaspora is not just the US. We've got other countries outside Kenya. So, how, and maybe this is a question for them, but I don't know how maybe you would address it, or what you think their thought process is. How would they be able to manage to make it 48 and make all other countries, all other places where Kenyans are living, to be maybe constituencies or whatever, maybe to have one person lead, notwithstanding where they're from. That is one. Two, what about the process, do you think, for them to be able to grant us, especially in the US and the UK, to vote? What do you think probably should have been done that would have better made it possible for more people to vote, more people to register to vote? And also maybe what should have been done or could have been done to expand registration, not just to confine it to, like in the US, it was DC, New York, and LA.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that also piggybacks on Pablo's question here on the chat. Pablo is asking, how does the good gentleman propose a change and address the issue of diaspora registration? Specifics, please. So, Chui, kazi kwako.
Yeah, thank you. So to your first question about how do you even, get to have that 48 county, from diaspora, given that diaspora is all over, not just the US. You're right. It's going to be a challenge in terms of getting that, but I think that process can be done through consultation, through having a committee that looks at where in the diaspora are Kenyans, and then coming out with a formula or a plan in terms of how maybe the different diaspora from the different countries can come together under one umbrella in terms of having I would say a working plan, where we can have a way as a diaspora to vote on who should be the leader or who should be doing that. So I think on that question, I'll say that having a committee that looks into how to realize that will be the first step to do. And I think based on what that committee presents or comes up with, I think it can be done. So I don't think that is an issue that is going to be challenging. But I think it's just that we need to have that chance to actually start that process and then see how that pans out in terms of our end goal. Now, second, to your question was about how would they expand? How will they have expanded the registration to other areas of the diaspora? So I'll just give an example of the US. In the US, studies have been done or surveys, where we have a very high concentration of Kenyans. Minnesota is one of them. Minnesota actually has many Kenyans, even more than the DMV area. So this is one area that actually, that could have been identified as an area where people can actually, they can send a resource or resources, to be able to come to Minnesota and actually have people register. There's a question about, about the equipment, about the process. Basically, even the stuff that they use to take, fingerprints and whatnot. Nowadays it's portable. In terms of logistics, we can talk to, in the different counties here, in the different cities that we live in the US. They can give us their city halls, just for that purpose. Because many cities in the US want to have that relationship because with the diaspora, from where they're coming from. Because like Minnesota, we have some cities where there's a very high concentration of Kenyans, and the city really wants to be part of that process in terms of making sure that those immigrants who are the diaspora for Kenya, are comfortable, doing business both here in Kenya, so that can be done. So I think it's a matter of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or the administration in Kenya opening up options for us to look at ways of making that happen. And yes, it can be done. So I don't know if that kind of answered that question.
Yeah, it does. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right, good. And now another thing, another elephant in the room, now as time is running out, another elephant in the room is that people holding dual citizenship are still not allowed to hold elected office in Kenya. And this has been so controversial. Now, I'm not going to ask you about your status, but I'm just going to ask you about that whole idea of dual citizens not being allowed to run for office in Kenya. Is that something that you will also include, should you get to the Senate, in your diaspora agenda? Because you have a lot of Kenyans here who hold American citizenship. They want to go back and run in Kenya, but they're told that, they can run, but they can't occupy the office. They will have to give up their citizenship before they get sworn in. Chui.
Yeah, I think that's something I plan to push to make the government much more open to it. But I think also there's other underlying, reasons or issues that make that difficult. So for any country that is sovereign, of course, its first interest is to protect its integrity, and having someone who's a dual citizen kind of goes against that in to some extent, But I think there is ways within reason where that can be improved or managed, So in the Senate, I think that's one of the areas I think as part of working for the diaspora. I mean pushing for the diaspora affairs that we need to look at and see what areas can we allow if you're a dual citizen you can run, and if you're not you can't. So for me, areas like being the president and holding sensitive positions, I think that's something I think as a nation we have to look at differently. So that question I think is a little bit challenging, but I think it should be looked at piece by piece based on the areas that might work for somebody to be dual or not. But also it's also important for people to understand back home that the idea of being a citizen actually adds more value to a country than harm. And I think that's one part, I think, where the opponents who have been able to oppose that idea are getting ahead, because they're spewing out misinformation about somebody who's a dual citizen. And I think number one, it's of course political, because there's folks back home who see people in the diaspora as being not Kenyans, and they see them coming to take away, their stuff, because they think that we are different, But again, I think creating awareness on the value of being a dual citizen and why that adds to a country's prosperity is something that I think we also need to push and create awareness among the people in Kenya, so that we can have that support to push that that idea that being dual is not a bad thing. It actually adds value to the nation. Some other countries do it. Israel does it very well.
America.
It adds more value.
The US, there's a lot of Israeli citizens in Congress.
Yes, exactly. So I think that's something I think for me, it's not a matter of if it's a bad or good thing. I think it's just more of a misinformation in Kenya that is really political, that is pushing this to be a little bit harder. And for right now, I'll just say that for anybody who's running for office in Kenya, as part of the requirements, they have to fulfill those requirements for them to be able to run in the first place. So whether you're a dual or you're not, when you make that decision to run for office in Kenya, you must have already looked into that requirement and say, yes, I pass or I don't pass this. So I think that speaks to your question about my own race as well.
Now, I'm also curious, Chui, how are you going to reconcile, like representing Kisii County and representing the diaspora? Because it's people in Kisii County who are going to be voting for you, and they're going to be asking you, did we elect you to go represent people in the diaspora? Or are you representing people in Kisii? What will you tell them?
No, that's very easy, Mr. Badawy. The world is one. Actually, there's no difference between a Kisii here and a Kisii in Minnesota. They're all one and the same. And basically, the diaspora people who are Kisiis weigh a lot of influence back home by virtue of what they give back to the people. If one person supports two or three families, they can push that family to they can influence others to vote. So that kind of notion or that kind of thinking, I think by now, it's there, but I think for me it's a non-issue, because when I'm elected as a senator in Kisii County, my first and foremost priority, of course, is to present the people of Kisii County. But on a national level, of course, is also to make sure that, of course, within Kisii County, we have also folks who are in diaspora. And then how does, at the administration in the national level, work to help that relationship much more easier, much more efficient, so that, in terms of our national prosperity, those two things work together. So I think it's just a change in terms of thinking that can help push that forward. So to your question, I don't think that's something that I need to reconcile with, because I'm part and parcel of that process already.
Okay, great. And as we wrap up, some people are curious on how you're conducting campaigns for the Kisii County seat. As we said earlier, right now you're in the purple state of Minnesota, and they want to know, have you been going back, or when are you going back? They want to know, how does this work? Running a campaign, you're in Minnesota and the campaign is in Kisii County.
Yeah, can we put stuff in your container,
Yeah, no, actually, like I said again, it can be done, and I'm doing it. As a matter of fact, I was back home for the last 4 months, so I was on the ground, basically doing what I need to do in terms of campaigning. So me being back in the US is, of course, basically to come back and also see my other affairs that I have here as well. So, but that doesn't change anything. The other thing too is that technology has basically changed how you campaign. So, as a matter of fact, the way right now I'm speaking to you on Zoom, in Kisii you can have people in a room or in a conference room, where you actually discuss issues. You're on a screen, they see you, they interact with you, and actually it works. So the idea of being in the ground, that doesn't really count anymore. It's just that people want to see you because, of course, most of them want to have that feeling of, somebody's being there. But again, that is not something that is very difficult. Folks who live in Nairobi and only come to Kisii to campaign, it's no different than being in the US. It's just that in Nairobi, it's much easier to go to Kisii, So, but for us, I think, thankfully, our technology has made that process a little bit easier. It's not that hard, but being back home is, makes things a little much better. But in terms of campaigning, it can be done both ways, as well. So how I do that is my model is a little bit of a hybrid, and then of course, if I'm not there, of course I have my team. I have my team who are also doing my bidding for me in terms of the campaigning. So we have a plan of every day. We have a plan in terms of where we go, what we do. So it's not difficult. So me being there or not being there, the work is still being done. So that's how at least I'm managing my part of the campaign.
Okay, great. And for those who maybe want to reach your campaign, or maybe be of assistance, how can they contact you? And then remind them also how they can contribute money if they wish to contribute.
Yeah. So for those who want to be, to support and be part of my campaign, number one, of course, I have, I'm on social media now on Facebook. I am there as Jeffrey Chui for Kisii County 2022. So they can reach me through there. I also have, I'm also on Twitter. So if you have a Senator Chui 2022, I'm also there as well. And then in terms of reaching me, I have a team on the ground. I have a number that I will share, on my Facebook pages, that for those who want to reach me, they can reach me. And then in terms of resources and whatnot, we within the US, we are getting resources through Cash App, and mine is $ Senator Chui. So $ Senator Chui. So S Senator and then the name Chui, CHUI. And then back home, of course, we have an M-Pesa line that people can send the money to. And then number is 0722499932. They can send money there too, or any support that they want to support the campaign.
Okay, asante sana. And Pablo here is saying, what about TikTok? That's where the youth are. So that's something that you might want to think about if you've not gone in there.
I think he's learning a dance.
Yeah. And then
Yes.
and then there's another quick question. Uno, please read that other question by Pablo.
Yeah, the question is, how are people in Kisii being receptive of this kind of politics? Unajua za Kenya ni za kukula, and US-based politics are issue-based.
Yeah, so that's actually a big challenge, and I think, like I've told many folks before, people like us going home to run for office, it's not that we just woke up, one day and say we want to run, so we're not naive in that sense. But yes, it's very, very difficult for somebody in diaspora to run back home, where for a while now, and still is the issue, is people don't care about your manifesto. People care about exactly what you can give them. You go say help someone, before you're even done, you're like, Mheshimiwa is kidogo, Mheshimiwa ni nanja, I mean, that's very prevalent, and it's a culture that is really sickening, because even the people who have the money, they actually ask you for money. So basically, that is what we are changing. So for me, of course, I'm doing what I need to do to get elected, But on the side, I'm also running a civic engagement awareness program, where, of course, if you receive something or get anything, there is a condition attached to that. Basically, it's a long shot, but I think when you tell someone that, if I give you this brown bag right now, it's only going to help me right now, But once I'm in, my first job is to get them that brown bag back, and by the time I get everything back, it's time for another election, which means that I cannot really do development. I cannot really do what I was really elected to do. So I think it's creating that awareness, and some people understand it, but some people don't. But it's I would say it's work in progress, and it's just to be progressive. So my campaign, I'm running a parallel campaign. Basically, one, of course, when I get elected, but the other side is of course creating that awareness that make people aware the importance of why you should elect people based on their ability, based on them, doing good for the community, but also starting to push that idea that my campaign is also issue based in terms of how I do things. It's not easy, but I think it's something that can be done. And just to finish, I want to say that my campaign is not just about this year. This is a long-term plan. So whether we are successful or not, this is something that I think we are still going to continue because if we don't, then nothing will change. So we have to we have to take time to actually or go out our way to actually get this done. So my hope is that anybody who feels that my campaign or my aspirations are inspiring to them and they want to give back, I'll say give back. Of course, continue giving your money, but also I think being a part and process of the leadership back home and in terms of governance and whatnot is also very critical because we need that in Kenya. I think that's the missing piece that I see here. So.
Okay, all right. Now, with that said, I want to say that this is it for the News and Politics Hour. I want to thank you, Jeff, Chui, Gichana, so much for taking your time to talk to us about your campaign and your aspiration for the Kisii County Senate seat. But we want all listeners and viewers to stay tuned because there's more coming up. Now, Uno, real quick, remind the viewers what we'll be discussing in tonight's social segment. Uno.
So, tonight's social segment is very simple. What would you do if you find out that the person who you've been calling dad is not your biological father? And Ali added a caveat to that.
Who is to blame? Yes.
For being the father or not being the father.
Yeah. For
when you find out that the person who raised you is not your biological father, what would you do? And who are you going to blame if you're going to blame him?
And I think it's going to be both the father and also the child. So both ways.
So the child is being blamed for being
this one is going to be Mashakura.
Yeah.
It's going to be Mashakura.
Okay, Mungu. How is this child being blamed for being fatherless?
No, it's not being blamed for being fatherless. Is you discover that your father, the one who raised you, is not your biological father.
Yes.
Who is to blame for that?
See, maybe it was a deathbed confession.
Or you, as the father, who has a son, believe is your son, and then one day you discover that he really is not your son. Who is to blame?
Now, can soon to be Senator Chui just briefly, 2 seconds, answer that?
Because I'm sure these issues come up in Kisii County.
Who is to blame.
Yeah.
No, in Kisii County, everything they just say witchcraft, and then you just move on.
What he can start by answering probably is, let's say, if, hypothetically speaking, you find out person you call dad is not your dad, is not your biological father. What would you do?
I think it depends on how he's been treating me, If he's been a good dad, in quotes, role model, I think, and he's done best to make sure my upbringing has been as easy as possible, then I think I'll appreciate him, But again, it also depends on what age you learn that. As you grow older and you mature, you see things a little bit differently. So I think for me, if I'm young, it will be a bit different. But if I'm older, I think I understand what being a dad means, and I think either whichever way I was brought up, I just have to appreciate for him being there and being somebody that I can see as a role model, whether good or bad, but at least somebody who has been there for me to to look up to, in terms of what I needed, So
if you're let's say 58.
If I'm 58,
yes.
Of course I'll appreciate him. I'll say, hey, so it's a different.
But if you're 22, 23.
Don't get me wrong. If I'm 58 or 22, of course, I'll want to know who my real dad is. That's another process. But I have to, of course, appreciate the person who was there for me as well. Yeah.
Okay, that's a true politician answer.
Yeah,
that's why
I was waiting for him to say something. Ama says he'll go to the oracle and throw stones. Then he'll look there and see.
I think that answer right there has won him like 5 or 6 more votes from what you were supposed to. That was a very good answer, and that's why I think Chui will do very well if he gets into the Senate. But we want listeners to stay tuned. And please remember to share our live stream, like our Facebook page. To those streaming on YouTube, this is the point where we say goodbye, but you can join us on our Facebook live stream. Please remember to like, subscribe, and follow us on all our social media handles and keep spreading the word. Mimi ni mtangazaji wenu Ali Badawy, aka Mjukuu wa Masai, and you're still tuned in to the One Mic Show. Uno.
Ladies and gentlemen, mabibi na mabwana, this is still a non-core presentation of the One Mic Show. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. We are on YouTube. Look for the space One Mic Show. Keep it locked. DJ Machachari Buddha Boss Gade.